To be. In this series, we have called them Samson Rides Alone. Here is a man that for at least 20 years, he was a judge. We do not have the story of even one thing that he judged. He was a leader. We do not find one time when he was leading the people. We find him hound dogging around the country, making love to foreign women and causing sorrow and destruction. Nothing constructive. And so we wish to bring to you in this episode of Samson, the strongest man who ever lived. I hope you're enjoying these lessons, and we have 10 of them all together, and this is lesson 4, Samson's first encounter. History records that Samson made love, illicit love, to 3 Philistine women. We do not have any record of Samson making love to a hometown girl, to one of the girls of Israel. His own parents said, "Say, honey," says, "can't you find any girl in all of Israel that you could like?" They had hundreds and maybe thousands of beautiful, lovely girls. But the lust inside of him sent him astray to play with idol worshipers, to play with people that were vulgar and evil and immoral. Samson loved 3 women. And all these 3 women represented something different in his life and in your life too. However, it was only the last woman, Delilah, that we'll be telling you about, who brought him to the breaking of his divine covenant with the Almighty. She didn't want to just have fun. She wanted to destroy him. She didn't want to just go to bed with him. She wanted to kill him. And he didn't realize that. He was making illicit love to a woman who had within her heart to destroy him, that he would never rise again. She's the one that caused him to break his Nazirite vow with God, so that he could never again be the great person that God wanted him to be. Samson was a judge of a whole nation. The God Jehovah had moved in Samson's life, making him a great one, a strong one, a mighty one. He understood how this strength gave him political power. He understood that. He knew that because of this supernatural power, he also had political power and possibly also had wealth. He was the head of a nation. Samson understood the power of material gain. You see, he understood that. And yet, he gave himself to sex. He gave himself to a desire for strange women rather than constructive, building a nation, building a community, building a family, building anything good. Samson, the strongest man that ever lived, did not bless humanity as he could have blessed humanity. He understood a desire for God. There were times when he desired God. God moved in his life in very wonderful ways. And only Samson could determine his place in history. And Samson did determine his place in history. On the great scoreboards outside of the theaters, it says Samson and Delilah. But it is not a story that builds a family. It's a story of illicit love. And after 3,000 years, mocking and laughing at a man who knew the way, but he didn't walk in it. He went his own way and had his own destiny. Samson's first encounter at today's lesson is found in Judges chapter 14, beginning in verse 1. It says, Samson went down to Timnath. Now that means that from up the way here, about 5 miles, he comes over here to this village. And in his village, they were Jews. It was a part of Dan, kind of close up toward Jerusalem. And in this area, there were Philistines. So he went down, 5 miles from home and from his father's house, 5 miles, and he found a woman of the Philistines. And this woman has no recorded name. Yeah, she lived and she died, but had no name. She was a pagan. She was an idol worshiper. She was blessed with a beautiful body, and that's all Samson wanted, was a beautiful body. If that is all in life that you're seeking for, there's trouble. There's trouble for you. I can promise you right now, there's great trouble for anyone that all they're looking for in life is a beautiful body. Samson lusted after this woman's body. He got her body, but lost her destiny. This woman, in a way, represents what we call the world. There's glitter there, there's beauty there, but there's also destruction there. The story is told in Judges chapter 14 and verse 2. It says, Samson came up from Timnath, right here, back up to his home, 5 miles away, and told his father and his mother, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore, get her for me. Samson demands his parents. Of course, he was a grown man. He was the judge of Israel. To told them to go down to Timnath and make arrangements for a marriage with these people. That was in the days when parents made arrangements for weddings. And so Samson, being a young man, he could not bargain for a wife, so he had to have his parents to do the bargaining and also pay the dowry. And so his parents went down to Timnath to take care of this for him. In verse 3 of that Judges chapter 14, his mother and father said, Samson, is there never a woman among the daughters of your brethren, among all of your people? You go to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? Even Moses had said, don't do it. Joshua had said, don't do it. And the great leaders of Israel had said, don't do it. And he went ahead and did it anyway. Those are the kind of people that have great sorrows in life. Those are the kind of people that really get into trouble. Those are the kind of people that you just feel so sorry for. They make such poor decisions. Says, why would you go to a pagan for a wife? And all Samson had to answer his father was, get her for me. She pleases me well. We ought to put that in lines straight across this film right now and let you see it. That get her for me. When young people get in that attitude, they're going to have trouble. When young people start making demands of their parents for things that they shouldn't have, you're going to have trouble. Says, she pleases me well. She didn't please his brain. He wasn't using it. It was only his lusts. She didn't please him at church because she didn't believe in the same God at all. And so it was only his lustful body that she could please. So it's possible that Samson has seen this little girl a lot of times. They only live 5 miles apart. You know, a boy can range 5 miles from home and be back for dinner until 5 miles don't do anything for a boy. They run and they jump, until they move at great distance during the day. And Samson realized that marrying this pagan was against the law and that she had never fit into his life, that she could never sit with the elders of Israel, that she could never sit by his side as he judged others. It would not be permitted. It was ostracizing him from his own people. It was making him a stranger to his own people that he was the judge of. It was a very strange situation. In verse 12, in Joshua chapter 23 and verse 11, it says, take good heed therefore unto yourselves that ye love the Lord your God, else if you do in any wise go back and cleave unto the remnant of these nations. That's what the Philistines were. That these that remain among you and shall make marriages with you and go into you and you unto them. Know for certainty the Lord your God will no more drive out any of these nations before you. There'll be no more deliverance for you. But they shall be snares, they shall be traps, they shall be scourges in your sides, they shall be thorns in your eyes. Now, no doubt he had read that in Joshua chapter 23. He had read that. He didn't think he'd ever lose his eyes, but he did. Until ye perish from off this good land which the Lord your God's given you. Now that was in the law, and he read it. He had to know it was in the law, and he read it. And yet he disobeyed and said, no, I want to do exactly what I desire to do. So Samson and his father and mother went down to Timnath. That's where we're standing right here now, in the town of Timnath, in the ruins of Timnath. And he came by the vineyards of Timnath. We've seen those vineyards. Maybe we can take a little picture of them a little later for you. The vineyards of Timnath, and a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of Jehovah, isn't that something? Doing the wrong thing, and the Spirit of Jehovah came mightily upon Samson. He rent the lion as you would rend a little kid or a little goat, and with nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father or his mother. You know, there was some greatness in the man. If some of you men were to kill a rabbit, you'd tell the whole neighborhood about it. And here's a man that killed a lion and didn't even tell his parents about it. Told nobody. So Samson went down to Timnath, 5 miles away from where he was born. He found this pagan girl. He liked her face and her body. And so he demanded his parents to give their permission for him to marry her. And evidently, he had not even talked to her. He'd only seen her. And so the parents had to go down and talk it over with that family and give the money that they would want for the girl. And so he married the pagan who did not know the law of God, did not know Jehovah, and was not living like God wanted him to live. So here was a judge in Israel. He deliberately transgressed against all the law that God had given. He fell in love with a pagan, which God did not like. His mother rebuked him. You know it's wrong, she said, to marry a pagan. And he said, she pleases me well. That was the only answer he had. She pleases me well. He did not answer for the nation or for the family. There are millions of people in hell right now that all they had to say was, she pleases me well. By the lust of the flesh, they're in the wrong place for eternity. We hope that won't happen to you. We hope you're listening. And we hope that as I talk out of the ruins of Timnath, that you will listen very, very well and say, I don't ever want to be caught up in a situation like that. And if you are caught up in it, find God's answer and get back where God wants you to be. So you look around for what pleases you well, and it'll take you to hell. No doubt about it. We do not do what pleases our senses, but we do what pleases God. And if you'll do that, you'll have a good life, and you'll have a good eternity. So Samson and his family went on down to Timnath for a wedding, and when they came back down there, after however long it was between the time he was betrothed to her, engaged to her, and the time he married her, and he went by to have a look at this lion that he killed. I don't know how long this engagement period was, but when he went back by there, he had a look at the lion. And so he found honey. Bees had made a little home inside the carcass of the lion. He reached in and got a handful of honey. He gave some to his mother, some to his father, ate some himself, and did not tell them where he found it. That shows you the kind of man he was. Here was a path, that led 5 miles down to the next town. And here was a ranging boy. That side, this side, top side, bottom side, running and jumping. And the parents were walking slowly along the same path. No doubt very sad. He brought them some honey, and they felt better. At the wedding, where he had only pagans, none of God's people there with him, Samson said, let's have some fun, everybody. I'll make up a riddle. And if you can answer it, he had 30 young men there that the heathen had said, these are the young men you have to feed and you have to have as your companions as part of your entourage for your wedding. And so he said to these 30 young men, let me give you a riddle. They said, all right. And so he gave them a riddle. He says, now, out of the eater, there came forth strength. You see, they couldn't believe it. And out of the strong, there came forth sweetness. And they couldn't imagine what he was talking about. And so here he was. His best man was a pagan, and those that with him were all pagans. And so he told them the riddle, and then they couldn't get it, and they were angry at the girl he married. They all knew the girl, she lived there. They were so angry with her they could kill her. They said, if you don't find out what this riddle is, said, did you bring us here for us all to lose a change of garment? He's going to take 30 changes of garment off of us if we don't find out that riddle. And so the feast was for 7 days. And after the first day, when he gave the riddle, they began to plague the woman. Tell us what that thing is. She says, I don't know. And she would go to him and cry and said, if you love me. When a woman starts telling you that, you better start running. Says, if you love me, you tell me what it is. He said, well, I haven't even told my mother and father. Why should I tell you? And we've just gotten married. And she plagued him day and night, crying, the Bible says, begging him, what is the riddle? Tell me what the riddle is. We want to know what the riddle is. And so finally, on the 7th day, she told him. And of course, she went straight and told the 30 men that were part of the great banquet. And when she told them, he became very angry and said, if you hadn't plowed my heifer, you wouldn't have found out about it. And he was so angry, he walked right off and left his gal that he had been living with for a week. He walked right off and went home without her. He said, if you had not, that's in Judges 14:18, if you had not plowed my heifer, you would have found out my riddle. And so he went, he was angry, and he went home. He stayed home a few days or a few weeks or whatnot. We don't know exactly how long. Then he decided he'd come back. So he brought a live kid along, a young goat, for them all to have a banquet with again, and gave it to them and said, I've come back, I've gotten over my anger. And the father looked at him and said, oh no, you can't have your wife. Now I don't know where he's gone, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or what. He says, we have given your wife to your best man. And said, he's been sleeping with her now. But says, I've got another girl. You know, the pagans always have another one. You can always get another devil. There's no problem about it. And says, how about her sister? So she's prettier than she is. And Samson was so angry that he says, I'll have to do something about this. So the first thing he did, he went down to Escalon, and we're going to be going down toward Escalon. And down in Escalon, he killed 30 men, brought the garments back up and threw them at their feet and gave them to them. And then he went on off home. So when he came back, he caught 300 foxes somewhere in these hills around here. And the grain was ripe, and the vineyards are ripe. And he put fire to them and turned them loose, and they burned down the grain, and they burned the barns and caused devastation. And the people got so angry in this area. They said, who did it? They said, Samson. Why? It says, because they gave his wife to another man. Those villagers went and burned her daddy, her mother, and her new boyfriend. Burned the whole lot. You see, they were so angry. They were so angry. So here was a man going from trouble to trouble. Yeah, he'd killed 30 men down in Escalon, which was quite a way down there, and brought the raiment body up and threw that dirty clothes and those bloody raiment, you know, right down at their feet, and there it was. And in Judges 14:19, it tells you about it. It says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. Down in Escalon, he slew 30 men, took their spoil, gave the changes of raiment to those who expounded the prisoner, and his anger was kindled against them. And so, after he had taken the 300 foxes in Judges chapter 15, put firebrands between their tails, and they burned up all of the enemy's grain, he went up on the rock Etam, very close by here, went up on the rock Etam and sat down up there. And the Philistines were so angry now. They said, why do we have to go through all of this? And they said, Samson is to blame for it. You know, backsliders are big problems. They just cause all kind of problems. The Philistines came up to his people and said, listen, we got to stop all this. So we want Samson. His own brethren said, okay. 3,000 of his brethren, imagine 3,000 men coming up after one man over here to the rock Etam and said, we come up to get you. He said, promise me that you won't touch me. And so they said, all right. And so he let them bind him. He took him down to the bottom of rock Etam here, and then they turned him loose. And when they did, the power of God came upon him, and he grabbed the jawbone of an ass, and he began to fight those men with it. And in Judges 15:14, when they came to Lehi, just a little way from rock Etam there, we'll show you that on the map, the Philistines shouted against him. And when he did, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson. The cords that were on his arms broke like flax, burnt with fire. His bonds were loose from off his bands. And Samson charged into the Philistine militia, into the army, grabbed up the jawbone of an ass. In Judges 15:15 it says, a new jawbone of an ass, put forth his hand and took it, and slew 1,000 men. And slew 1,000 men with it. He became thirsty during the battle and cried out to God, and God opened up water miraculously in that jawbone and made it come forth with water, that his thirst, you know, that's in Judges 15:18. He was so athirst and called upon Jehovah, would you give a great deliverance to thy servant? And now shall I die of thirst and fall in these uncircumcised men. And God clave a hollow place in the jaw, that came out water. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again and revived. Therefore, the name thereof is called Lehi, unto this day, the place where the water sprung forth. Now, that is his first encounter. Whew, that's a life story all of its own. Isn't that amazing? That's the first encounter. Let's look at it. Here's a young man, possibly 20 years old. He was already a judge in Israel. No doubt he had picked up trees out of the ground with his power, moved a large stone with his power. They had seen his prowess, jump high, run fast, and they said, make him a judge. He is a Nazarite. His parents told the story of an angel that came and told about him, and so he was right in line for greatness. And here he went the wrong way. Let's look at it. Number one, wrong marriage, wrong love affair. Young man, young lady, you can marry the wrong person and ruin your whole life. Please believe me, you certainly can. This strange woman, not of his belief, not of his religion, not of his type of family, she deceived him. She lied to her own husband. She should have grabbed him and held on to him and said, Samson, take me to your home. They're going to kill me here. No, she didn't do that. She lied and deceived her own husband. Because of that, he became angry and killed 30 soldiers in Ascalon, right over close by here by the sea. He went back and threw those down and gave them to the 30 men that were at his wedding. Then he separated from his wife. Separation from your wife is not new. It's as old as the devil almost. I wouldn't get involved in it if I were you. He separated from his wife. And then the people in Timnath were angry, and they burned his wife and the whole family, burned them. Then Samson got angry about that, and he burned down their wheat harvest. He was so angry. And then they came to take him and to kill him, and right here in Lehi, we find again that Samson slew 1,000 men with a jawbone of an ass. One might expect such an awful experience to teach this man a great lesson. But in our next lesson, we're going to study Samson's second encounter. The first encounter was enough for a lifetime. But the second encounter is very interesting also.